Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're really getting into the practical side of King David's rule.
Yeah, we're looking at how he actually ran the kingdom day to day.
Exactly. We're
Wow.
digging into First Chronicles chapter 27. It's this, well, it's like an organizational chart for ancient Israel.
It really is. It lists out the key people, the structures,
Mhm.
military, administration, even property management. It's fascinating stuff.
It pulls back the curtain on the sheer complexity of it all. So our goal here is to unpack this chapter, figure out the systems David set up, and what it tells us about his leadership.
Right. And maybe start with the military organization. That's where the chapter begins.
Good idea. So it talks about these monthly divisions for the army.
Yes, exactly. 12 divisions, one for each month. And the detail is striking. Each division had 24,000 men.
Wow, 24,000. Every single month, a rotating force that size.
Precisely. A standing army, essentially always ready. It implies a very sophisticated system for rotation, supplies, everything.
That's serious organization, much more than just calling up farmers when there's trouble.
Definitely. This suggests a professional corps, a constant state of readiness.
And it names the commanders for each month, right?
It does, a whole list. The first month was Jashabim, son of Zabdil. He's noted as a chief officer.
Okay.
Second month, Dodai the Ahohite. And it even mentions someone named Mikloth was a leader under him.
So layers of command even within the monthly group.
Seems like it. Now, the third month's commander is really interesting. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada the priest.
Benaiah. He pops up a lot, doesn't he?
He does. And here, he's listed as commander of this division, and he's one of David's famous mighty men, specifically one of the 30, and he's described as being over the 30.
Hold on. So he's leading a 24,000-man division. He's in the elite warrior group, and he's the boss of the elite warrior group.
That's what the text suggests. A key figure connecting the regular army structure with David's most trusted fighters.
Makes sense. And didn't it say something about his son?
Yes. It mentions his son, Amizabad, was in charge of his division. Maybe Benaiah was busy with his other duties. It shows delegation, perhaps.
Huh? Interesting detail. Who else is on the list?
Fourth month was Asahel, Joab's brother, but it notes his son Zebediah succeeded him.
So maybe suggesting these positions could be inherited, or at least there was a planned succession.
Possibly. Or maybe Asahel died, as we know happened earlier in David's story, and his son took over the honorary command later. Then you have Shamhuth the Israelite, Ira the Tekoitzi,
Ego.
Helez the Pelonite, an Ephraimite, Sibbecai the Hushathite from the Zerahites. Month 9, Abiez the Anathothite, a Benjamite.
Lots of different tribal affiliations mentioned.
Yes, showing representation across Israel. Then Maharai the Netophathite, another Zerahite. Month 11, another Benaiah, this one a Parathonite from Ephraim.
Okay, different Benaiah.
Right. And finally, Heldai the Netophathite, noted as being from Othniel's family.
Othniel, like the first judge. That connects back.
It does. It links David's administration to Israel's older traditions and leadership lines.
So this whole system, 12 commanders, 24,000 men each month. The logistics must have been immense.
Absolutely. Scheduling, provisioning, barracks, training. It paints a picture of a very organized military machine.
Okay, so that's the standing army. But the
Uh-huh.
chapter doesn't stop there, does it? It talks about leaders for the tribes, too.
Right, and these seem distinct from the military commanders. These are more like civil administrators or representatives for each tribe within the kingdom structure.
Like a link between the central government and the traditional tribal areas.
Exactly. It lists them out. Eleazar for Reuben, Shephatiah for Simeon, Hashabiah for Levi.
And for Levi, there was a special mention for the priests.
Yes, Zadok is listed specifically over Aaron, meaning overseeing the priestly line within the tribe of Levi.
Underscores their distinct role, who was over Judah, David's own tribe.
Elihu, who is explicitly called a brother of David.
Ah, putting family in a key spot. Makes sense for stability, I suppose.
A common practice. Then Omri for Issachar, Ishmaiah for Zebulun, Jeremoth for Naphtali, Hoshea for Ephraim.
And Manasseh was split.
Yes, reflecting its territory. Joel over the western half, Iddo over the half in Gilead east of the Jordan.
Practical geography.
Then Josiel for Benjamin, and interestingly, he's called the son of Abner.
Abner. Saul's old commander. Wow.
Yeah, putting Abner's son in charge of Benjamin, Saul's tribe, that could be a really significant move towards reconciliation and unifying the kingdom.
A political appointment, almost, to integrate the old guard.
It certainly looks like it. And finally, Azarel for Dan. So you have this layer of tribal leadership integrated into the kingdom's administration.
Okay, so we've got military structure, tribal reps,
Yeah.
and then there's that bit about the census that didn't quite work out.
Yes, a brief but important mention. It says David told them not to count men aged 20 or younger.
Why not?
The reason given is God's promise to make Israel as numerous as the stars. Counting them fully might imply relying on numbers instead of that promise. Maybe a lack of faith.
A theological angle on administration. But even the limited count wasn't finished.
No. It says Joab started counting but stopped, and the consequences were severe. Wrath came on Israel because of it. The final numbers weren't even put in the official records.
That's a major contrast to all the precise lists everywhere else in the chapter. Meticulous military numbers, detailed administrators, but the basic population count is incomplete and problematic.
It's a powerful reminder, maybe, that for the chronicler, organization and administration still operated under divine sovereignty. Some things were just off limits or required a different approach.
Right. Okay, so moving on from that, the chapter then dives into another area of incredible detail.
But
managing the king's property and resources.
yes, this part is amazing. It shows such specific management roles. It's like looking at the organizational chart for, the Royal Estates Operations Department.
Give us some examples. What kind of roles?
Well, Asmaveth was over the main royal storehouses, the central treasury, perhaps. But then Jonathan, son of Uzziah, managed the outlying storehouses in the fields, towns, villages, even watchtowers.
So central storage and a distributed network. Very practical.
Then you get into agriculture. Ezri was over the field workers, the ones actually farming the land. She may manage the vineyards. But then, get this, Zabdi was specifically over the produce of the vineyards for the wine vats.
Wait, not just the vineyards, but the grape harvest specifically destined for wine. That's specialized.
Incredible detail, isn't it? Then Malalanon managed the olive and sycamore fig trees in the western foothills, a key agricultural region.
Right.
And Joash was in charge of the supplies of olive oil, again separating the raw resource from the processed, stored commodity.
Olive oil was vital. Makes sense to manage it carefully. What about animals?
Oh yeah, Shitrai the Sharonite managed the herds grazing in the plains of Sharon. Shaphat managed the herds in the valleys.
Different managers for different grazing areas.
Think so. Obal the Ishmaelite was over the camels. Maybe because Ishmaelites were known for camels? Or just his area of expertise.
Interesting.
Jediah the Meronothite was over the donkeys, and Jaziz the Hagrit managed the flocks, the sheep, and goats.
Camels, donkeys, cattle, sheep, goats. Each has its own manager. This isn't just casual farming. This is systematic resource management on a grand scale.
It really shows a sophisticated approach to the kingdom's economy, ensuring the royal household and probably the state were well supplied. It's careful stewardship of assets.
It paints a picture of a very well-run enterprise.
You could say that. And finally, the chapter lists a few key personnel, advisors close to the king.
The inner circle.
Sort of. Jonathan, David's uncle, is mentioned again. Here he's called a counselor, a man of insight and a scribe. Wisdom and practical skills combined.
A trusted family advisor.
Then Jehiel, son of Hakmoni, who took care of the king's sons, a crucial role managing the next generation.
Absolutely.
Ahithophel is listed as the king's counselor, a famous name.
Famous for good and bad reasons, thinking of Absalom's rebellion.
Exactly, and the text even notes his successors, Jehoiada, son of Benaiah.
Wait, Benaiah's father? Or another Jehoiada? Oh, son of Benaiah. Okay, different generation of relation.
Yeah.
And Abiathar the priest.
Right. That succession note itself points to the political turmoil David faced. It anchors this list in history.
Good point. Who else?
Hushai the Archite is there, famously called the king's friend, a title suggesting deep personal loyalty and trust.
Another key figure from the rebellion narrative.
Yes. And the list concludes by mentioning Joab again as commander of the royal army.
Bringing it full circle, reinforcing his position over that whole military structure we started with.
He's the military linchpin.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. We have the monthly army divisions, the tribal liaisons, these incredibly specialized property managers, the inner circle of advisors, all capped by Joab leading the military. What's the big picture here from 1 Chronicles 27?
The big picture is, well, it's one of remarkable organizations. It shows David didn't just conquer territory, he built a state. A complex administrative apparatus was needed to run this kingdom.
It wasn't just about his personal charisma then. He built systems. He delegated. He recognized the need for specialized skills, from fighting to farming.
Precisely. You see layers of governance, military security, regional administration through the tribes, economic management, and personal counsel. It's quite comprehensive.
It provides a kind of blueprint for how an ancient kingdom could be structured for stability and, well, prosperity.
And the fact that the chronicler included this level of detail suggests they saw this administrative foundation as a key part of David's legacy.
It definitely adds another dimension to his reign, beyond the battles and the Psalms. It's the practical machinery of statecraft.
It makes the kingdom feel much more tangible, more real.
So wrapping up this deep dive,
Uh-huh.
we've seen these layers: the army rotation, the tribal officers, the detailed property oversight, the advisors.
And that curious contrast with the census, the meticulous planning elsewhere, versus the problems encountered when trying to count the people, highlighting maybe the limits or boundaries of administration in their worldview.
Yeah. The sheer number of roles and the specificity really drives home the complexity involved, even back then. David clearly needed a large team and detailed systems.
Leadership requires structure, delegation, managing resources. That seems to be a timeless principle.
So here's something for you, the listener, to think about. This chapter shows David focused intensely on both military readiness and detailed economic management. What does that balance tell us about his core priorities as a leader?
Good question. Security and prosperity going hand in hand.
Perhaps. And think about these ancient roles managers for vineyards, for oil supplies, for herds in specific regions. How do those principles of specialization, delegation, and resource management echo, or maybe differ, from how we organize large institutions, governments, or even companies today?
Are the underlying challenges of managing large systems really that different?
Worth considering. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the nuts and bolts of David's kingdom. We hope exploring 1 Chronicles 27 gave you a new perspective on ancient administration.